Welcome to the Curious Room. I am so glad you are joining us. We often talk about facing reality, right? As if reality is just this single, solid object sitting on a table. But, well, the more we look at how human beings actually function, the more we realize that what we call reality is actually a carefully curated exhibit. We see what we need to see to get through the day. We feel what we need to feel to maintain our relationships and, honestly, our sanity. But there is a tension there, a nagging suspicion that just outside our peripheral vision, there are things, vast, complex, maybe even cold things, that just do not fit into our nice, neat story. So today, we are debating a fundamental question about how we should understand the world. Should we strive to understand things through a gentle journey, filtering the universe through our human needs and relatable emotions? That is the side I will be advocating for today. Or is true understanding found only when we tear down the filters and stare directly at the unseen horizons, no matter how uncomfortable or alien they might be?
And I will be taking that opposing view. It is great to be here to dig into this, by the way, because I think we have this biological arrogance where we just assume that if we cannot feel something or if it doesn't make sense in a simple, polite story, it simply isn't important. But the universe is not built for our comfort. It wasn't designed to be polite to us.
Polite is subjective, but go on.
Right. Well, the unseen horizons I am talking about, they aren't just poetic metaphors. They are the actual gears of the machine that we ignore because, frankly, they scare us, or maybe because they are just too big for our brains to hold. So the real debate today is, are we here to feel safe, or are we here to know what is true? Because very often, I really do not think you can do both.
See, I think that is a false dichotomy right out of the gate. You're suggesting that safety and truth are opposites. But I would argue that safety, specifically psychological safety, is the very platform that allows us to explore the truth. I mean, think about it. If you throw someone into the middle of the ocean without a boat, they don't learn oceanography, they drown.
That is a bit dramatic.
No, it is human nature. The perspective I hold, this gentle journey approach, is about building that boat. It is about acknowledging that we are human beings with serious limitations. We process information through narrative, through clear, logical sections, and through emotional connection. If you strip all of that away in the name of raw truth, you aren't enlightening people. You are just blinding them with too much light. Real-life feelings and small examples are the only way we actually digest reality.
Let's get concrete here and look at the history of human knowledge. Every major leap forward, every time we actually spotted a new horizon, it wasn't gentle. It was a shock. It was a trauma to our collective ego. When we realized the Earth was not the center of the universe, that did not feel like a gentle journey. It made people feel small, insignificant, and terrified. It completely shattered their human reality.
Right, but
Let me just finish this point because it is crucial. It shattered their reality, but it was the truth. If we had insisted on keeping things polite and relatable back then, we would still be believing the sun revolves around us, just because it feels nicer.
that is a classic example, sure. But let's look at what actually happened after that shock. Yes, the raw data was a shock. But how did it become accepted? It didn't happen overnight. It happened because thinkers, writers, and teachers took that terrifying abstract concept and wove it into a new story. They gave us a new way to see our place in the cosmos. They made it relatable again. They broke it down into clear, logical sections. That is the gentle journey in action. It is the digestion of the shock. You seem to value the initial impact, the slap in the face of the new discovery. I value the 100 years of conversation that follows, where we actually figure out how to live with it.
I suppose I just worry that we are becoming way too good at the digestion part and too afraid of the impact. We are so obsessed with finding clear, logical sections that we refuse to look at anything that is messy. Take quantum mechanics, for instance.
Oh, here we go.
No, really, hear me out. It is the absolute bedrock of our physical reality. It governs everything, but it makes absolutely no sense to the human logical mind. Things can be in two places at once. Cause and effect get all jumbled up. It is fundamentally unconventional. If you try to force that into a polite human narrative, you actually break the truth of it. You have to accept the discomfort of it. You have to accept that reality is just weirder than you are.
I completely agree that the universe is weird, but we are not quantum particles. We are people.
We wake up, we eat breakfast, we talk to our families. We live in a world of cause and effect. That is our human reality. I mean, even the physicist who studies quantum mechanics eventually has to drive her car home, and she better hope that car behaves according to classical, logical physics. My point is, there is a massive utility to our relatable thoughts. They aren't just delusions to make us feel better. They are the interface we use to survive. If we spend all our time staring at the unseen, the chaos, the void, the quantum weirdness, we lose the ability to function in the world where we actually live.
See, function is a very practical word. I am interested in understanding, and I think our biological interface is actually quite limiting. Think about the spectrum of light. We only see a tiny, tiny sliver of it. We don't see ultraviolet like a bee does. We don't see infrared like a sneak. We are walking around essentially half blind, absolutely convinced that what we see is the whole picture. The unconventional perspective is simply the willingness to use tools, mathematics, technology, philosophy, to look at the ultraviolet, to look at the things our biology actively tries to hide from us. You call that cold or abstract, but I call it stepping out of the cave.
Stepping out of the cave is fine, provided you can bring something back with you. But let's stick with your light spectrum analogy. It is true, we don't see UV light. But why? Evolutionarily speaking, we don't need to. In fact, if we saw every spectrum of light, every radio wave, every microscopic movement, our brains would be completely overwhelmed. We would be paralyzed by the noise. The gentle journey isn't about willful ignorance. It is about focus. It is about filtering the infinite down to the manageable. We need those filters to have a meaningful experience. When you talk about stripping them away, I feel like you're asking us to dismantle the very thing that makes us sentient.
I am not asking us to dismantle it. I am asking us not to mistake the filter for the reality. There is a huge danger in falling in love with the filter. When we prioritize real-life feelings, our emotional reaction to things, over the data, we get into trouble. We start rejecting truths because they feel bad.
Do we, though?
We see this all the time. People reject complex systemic problems because the explanation isn't simple or polite. They want a villain and a hero. They want a gentle narrative. But the unseen horizons, things like climate systems or global economics or the nature of consciousness, they are complex, nuanced, and frankly indifferent to our feelings. If we demand they be easy to understand, we are essentially demanding they be false.
I think you are confusing simple with simplistic. I am not arguing for dumbing things down at all. I am arguing for translation. You mentioned complex systems. You are right. They are incredibly hard to grasp, but the only way we ever solve them is by breaking them down into small examples, into pieces that actually fit into a human mind. That is what I mean by a polite narrative. It is the act of taking the chaotic and organizing it. You seem to think that the chaos is the only part that matters, but I think the organization is the human contribution. That is the art of science. That is the art of philosophy. It is taking the unseen and making it seen, making it familiar so we can act on it.
But familiarity breeds contentment, and contentment stops inquiry. That is my fundamental fear here. If we make everything familiar, if we insist that the universe must be like a guest in our home, we stop looking for the things that are alien. And the alien things are almost always where the breakthrough lies. Think about the concept of time.
Okay.
We feel time flowing like a river, past, present, future. That is the gentle human experience. It feels true. But the unconventional perspective, theoretical physics, tells us that time might be more like a block, where the past and future exist simultaneously. That idea is jarring. It violates every real-life feeling you have. But if you refuse to engage with it just because it isn't comforting, you are missing the fundamental nature of existence.
But can you really engage with it? I mean, really engage with block time. You can write an elegant equation about it, you can talk about it at a physics conference, but you cannot live it. You cannot experience your life that way. You still have to wait for the kettle to boil. You still mourn the past and hope for the future. So there is a hard limit to how useful that unseen horizon is to the actual human experience. I am not saying we shouldn't study it. I'm saying we shouldn't let it devalue our lived reality.
The gentle journey validates the human experience as real and important, even if it is scientifically incomplete.
Scientifically incomplete is a very polite way of saying it is an illusion. And I suppose that is where we fundamentally disagree. I think there is a profound dignity in knowing the truth, even if you cannot live it every second of your day. There is a dignity in knowing that the solid chair you are sitting on right now is actually 99.9% empty space held together by forces you can't see. Does it change how you sit? Maybe not, but it changes how you think. It opens a door in your mind. The gentle journey keeps that door shut because the draft is chilly. I say, let the draft in. It wakes you up.
See, I love that image of the chair. It is poetic. And that is exactly my point. You just used a metaphor. You used language, a deeply human tool to explain a non-human concept. You didn't just read me the math, you gave me an image of empty space. You made it relatable. You are using the tools of the gentle journey even while you argue against them. We cannot escape our humanity. We are storytelling creatures. Even when we explore the furthest reaches of the unseen, we are doing it to bring back a story. My argument is simply that we should acknowledge that and be good at it. We should be kind to the listener. We should pave the road so more people can travel it.
Fair point on the metaphor. Language is indeed a trap we are both stuck in. But I would argue that while I use the metaphor to point at the truth, you use the metaphor to wrap the truth in bubble wrap. You talk about being kind to the listener, but sometimes the kindest thing you can do is shock someone. If you are sleepwalking toward a cliff, I don't gently whisper a narrative about gravity. I yell. I grab you. Unconventional perspectives are that yell. They disrupt the logical sections of our daily bias. They force a reset. If we only value the slow, polite approach, we might sleepwalk right off the edge.
I think we just have very different definitions of sleepwalking. To me, sleepwalking is going through life without connection, without emotional resonance. You can know all the data in the universe, you can stare into the abyss of the unseen all day, but if you cannot connect that back to your fellow humans, if you cannot feel the breeze on your face and appreciate it for what it is, then you are just a ghost in a machine. The gentle journey is about staying awake to the beauty of the surface, not just obsessing over the mechanics underneath. Why is the surface less valuable than the depths? The surface is where we meet. It is where love happens. It is where art happens.
The surface is beautiful, yes, but the surface is unstable. If you don't understand the depths, the currents, the tectonic plates, you are completely at the mercy of them. You mentioned earlier that we construct a human reality. My worry is that this curated reality is becoming increasingly disconnected from the physical one. We live in digital worlds, social worlds, narrative worlds. We are so buffered by our comforting reflections that when actual physical reality intrudes, be it a virus, a changing climate, or a geological event, we're totally shocked. We feel betrayed, and we shouldn't be. The unseen horizons were always there. We just refused to look at them because they weren't polite.
That is a strong argument, I'll give you that. We do tend to insulate ourselves. But I would counter that the solution isn't to abandon the human scale, it is to expand it. And we expand it through that slow, steady integration. Think about how a child learns. You do not teach a 5-year-old about the heat death of the universe.
Well, maybe you don't.
You teach them about the seasons. You teach them about cycles. You give them a small example that builds a foundation. Then, as they grow, you add more complexity. You widen the circle. If you start with the cosmic horror, you don't get a wiser child, you get a traumatized one. We are all children in the face of the infinite. We need the gentle journey to grow up.
But we are not children. We are a species capable of splitting the atom and looking back to the beginning of time. At some point, we have to stop asking for the child-safe version of reality. You talk about trauma, but I talk about resilience. The mind is like a muscle. If you only lift light weights, easy concepts, comforting truths, it creates a soft mind. If you grapple with the unconventional, with the paradoxes and the void, it strengthens the mind. It creates a capacity for true nuance. We need to stop treating the human population like they are fragile. They can handle the unseen. They just need to be told that it's okay to be uncomfortable.
I don't think it's about fragility at all. I think it is about bandwidth. We have jobs, families, health issues. The human reality is demanding. When I advocate for a polite, easy-to-understand narrative, it is out of respect for the struggle of daily life. If I want someone to care about a new perspective, I have to show them how it fits into their life, not just how it disrupts it. I have to show the smooth connections. For example, if you want people to care about the microbiology of soil, a classic unseen horizon, you don't dump a textbook on them. You talk about the taste of the tomato in their garden. You connect the invisible to the visible feeling. That isn't coddling. That is effective communication.
Effective communication or manipulation. You are curating the data to trigger a specific emotional response. You are picking the tomato because it triggers a happy memory. You aren't talking about the decomposition, the rot, the bacteria wars happening in that dirt. You are sanitizing the unseen to make it palatable. And sure, that sells the idea. But does it convey the truth? The truth of the soil is violent and cyclical and completely indifferent. I want people to appreciate the rot, not just the tomato, because the rot is the actual engine of life.
But the rot leads to the tomato. You can't separate them. And most people, quite frankly, are far more motivated by the tomato than the rot. Is that a bias? Yes. Is it human reality? Absolutely. And I don't think we should apologize for that. We are biological organisms driven by hunger and beauty. The gentle journey embraces that. It uses our nature to pull us forward. You seem to want us to overcome our nature entirely, to become pure intellects floating in the void.
I want us to be aware of our nature so we aren't ruled by it. I want us to look at the unseen without immediately asking, how does this serve me? There is a profound humility in that. It is the difference between a tourist and an explorer. The tourist wants the hotel to be just like home, but with a better view. The explorer accepts that the terrain is different, the food is different, and the rules are different. The explorer changes to fit the environment. The tourist demands the environment change to fit them. I am arguing for exploration.
And I am arguing that most of us are tourists, and that is okay. And even the explorer needs a base camp. They need a warm tent. They need a map that makes sense. You can't just live in the wild forever. You have to come back. And when you come back, you have to tell the story. That is the crucial part. The unseen means nothing if it stays unseen. It has to be brought into the light of the campfire. It has to be shared in simple English. It has to be made gentle so it can be passed on.
I will concede that the sharing requires translation. I will give you that. But the discovery requires leaving the campfire. It requires walking into the dark where the map ends. And you have to be willing to be lost for a while. You have to be willing to let go of the logical sections because the terrain hasn't been mapped yet. If you demand logic before you step out, you never leave the circle of light.
But maybe we expand the circle of light slowly. We push the perimeter out, inch by inch. We don't have to leap, we can step. We can bring our real-life feelings with us as a compass. If something feels wrong, we pause, we analyze, we integrate. We keep our humanity intact while we grow.
And I say we leap, because sometimes the chasm is just too wide to step. Sometimes the paradigm shift, like the realization that we are made of stardust or that space is curved, requires a massive jump. And yes, it is scary. Yes, it is not polite. But the view on the other side, it is worth every bit of the discomfort. It is a wider, wilder, truer reality.
I think we are standing at the edge of that circle right now. You are looking out into the dark, ready to jump, and I am checking the supplies to make sure we can survive the trip.
Perhaps we need both. But I warn you, do not pack too much comfort or you will never want to leave.
And I warn you, do not leave your humanity behind or you will have no one to share the view with.
A fair warning, the unseen is lonely, but it is real.
And the gentle journey is slow, but it brings everyone along.
Then I suppose we will see which method gets us further in the end.
Indeed we will. Thank you for joining us in The Curious Room. Whether you are a leaper or a stepper, we hope you keep exploring the space between what feels safe and what is true.
Look at the horizon. It is further away than you think.
Until next time, take care.